Hi everyone, Mike here with another basing video. This time I'm going to make a section of abandoned highway or runway. It could be either. In this case I'm using a sheet of thin cork and a 100 by 70mm base from Games Workshop. As you can see, I'm tracing around the top of the base onto the cork, and then I'm going to cut this out with a hobby knife. Next I'm going to trim a perfectly straight line along the length of this to make it seem more like we're looking at a section of road. After that, I really want to glue this down, but my super glue is completely dried out and I have to go get more. This road is looking a little too pristine, so next I'm going to add a few potholes and broken sections. I'm using one of my sculpting tools to just dig a little into the cork, and I'm breaking chips off the edge. I'm not throwing these away though, these are going on the side of the road as debris. Next I'm going to add some earth texture next to the road, and I'm going to put the bits of cork into it. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but I'll be using Vallejo dark earth for this. I'm also going to throw a skull and some barbed wire in there as well. I have other videos where I show how to make chain link fences and adding barbed wire, so I'll skip that part. Once this earth texture hardens completely, I'm spraying the whole thing with a black primer. I want to give the road a bit of texture, so I'm using Astrogranite for this. This is just another texture paste, and you can use any other texture that has sand and grit mixed into it. The only reason I'm using this one is because I somehow ended up with 2 pots of it and I've never used it before. I'm not putting this on very heavy. I'm using a flat brush and I'm spreading this out really thin, like butter scraped over too much bread. If you wanted to, you could instead just put a bit of glue onto the road and sprinkle a few patches of sand onto that. Once that's dried, I'm covering the entire road with black contrast paint, though you could instead use a mix of black paint and water. I'm also using this black paint to cover the spots that were missed with the black primer. Next I'm going to do 2 light dry brushes over the road and its edges. I'm starting with Mechanicus Standard Gray. Mostly what I'm trying to do is pick out the rough texture that's on the top. You'll also want to use this on the bits of road debris that are stuck in the mud. After the Mechanicus Gray, I'm switching to Celestra Gray and going very lightly over the rough bits and road edges. Now I want to make a dashed line down one side of the road. To make sure I get a straight line, I'm marking the area off with painter's tape. To make the dashes, I'm cutting 1/2-inch strips from the painter's tape, and I'm going to lay these across the other 2 strips. I don't want these dashes to look super neat. This is, after all, an abandoned section of road or runway, so for this part I'll be using a sponge. I'm dabbing off most of the paint, and this one is Balor brown, and I'm going to dab it on the exposed area. As you can see, it's a bit patchy, and that's the way I want it. After the Balor brown, I'm next using Averland Sunset, and I'm adding just a few dabs here and there to make it look like this was the original line color. And now for the best part. Oh yeah. Now I need to paint all the dirt and junk on the side of the road. I'm starting off by covering everything in watered down Rhinox. After that, I'm doing a heavy dry brush with XV88, and then I'm going to follow that up with a lighter dry brush with Zandri dust. For the barbed wire, I'm just dry brushing on some silver paint. The skull is already base coated in a dark brown, so it won't need a wash in the eye sockets or facial features. I'm just going to dry brush some World War II German beige over the entire skull, and then a lighter dry brush of Ushabti bone over the top of the skull and the facial features. This next part is optional, but I like to add a little color variety to the ground and debris with washes. I'm first using Athonian Camoshade, then Agrax Earthshade. I'm dabbing this in random spots on the ground and also around the bottom of the rocks and the skull to add some shadow. The last bit of color I'm adding is some rust to the barbed wire. I'm putting a few splashes of an orange paint onto the wire. And the last bit of paint is for the rim of the base. Once all of this paint dries, I'm sealing everything in with a layer of matte varnish. Now that the varnish is dried, I'm putting on a few final touches with some tufts and flock. I've torn up some wasteland tufts from Army Painter and I'm sticking them into one of the potholes and onto the dirt. And finally, I'm using some watered down PVA glue to add some burnt turf flock from Cato Precision Railroads. And there you have it, an old highway for your modern day or futuristic models. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting these videos, and a special thanks to Brian Jones. If you're into basing videos, be sure to check out my Paint Tech playlist for more, and thanks for watching.